Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Translating the Keys of the Bible. We're still in Isaiah chapter 1, and we're looking at verses 29 and 30, which each have the word key. You'll see that I'm highlighting it on my screen now. Both verses begin with it, and this case is much more interesting than some of the previous ones because we're dealing with interpretations that haven't really been considered previously. So by way of a reminder, we're working with the hypothesis that the Hebrew word key only needs to be translated one of three ways: if, when, and that, rather than the 22 ways that's been proposed by so many people who have done their best at guessing as to what this word means, but there's been no unity amongst the scholars. And we're taking a modern linguistic approach to understanding it. So we're asking, how do the world's languages use if? How do the world's languages use that? When I say that, I mean the complementizer. So what is a complementizer? A complementizer turns a sentence into the subject or object of a verb. So uh, I saw that the dog was fluffy. What did I see? I didn't see the dog. I saw the situation of the dog being fluffy expressed in that sentence. So that the dog is fluffy is the object of the verb saw, or that the dog is fluffy should be obvious to everyone. So now it is the subject of the verb should. So it's taking sentences and making them into subjects or objects. And there's also greater uses than this. Uh, and many of the world's languages that are also used in, well, two of the ways we'll discuss here. So let's dive in. So I'll go up to verse 27 to get some context. Zion by justice shall be redeemed, and those returning to her, or her returners, or her repentant ones, will be redeemed by righteousness. Transgressors and sinners together will be a fracture or a break. Maybe this is the idea of something that's broken off and thrown away. And then it's restated in another way at the end of the verse. Those abandoning Yahweh will come to an end. So there'll be no more of those guys. They will be ashamed from the oaks that you have desired, and you will be humiliated from the gardens that you have chosen. So we have a change in person here. There's this other group. They will be ashamed of what you have chosen. So who's the you? The you is Isaiah's audience that he's condemning throughout the entire book. And the they is some other group. So we need to go back up and ask which other group is being spoken about. Uh, I'm thinking it's probably the repentant ones who are redeemed with righteousness. They're repentant, they're redeemed by righteousness, they've returned to God, they're not the ones who forsake God. So they are ashamed of what this other group has chosen. So the present inhabitants of Zion are choosing these oaks and these gardens. So these oaks could either be understood as cultic trees that are used for worship, or multiple times in the book of Isaiah, trees are used as stand-ins for the kings of the nations. So perhaps the residents of Zion have preferred human political leaders across the world over against Yahweh. Or with these gardens, they're probably worshiping idols in the gardens instead of Yahweh. So these future people who will be redeemed will be ashamed of what the present inhabitants of Zion have desired and chosen. So how should we be thinking of key here? So there, in the previous episode, we talked about inferential constructions, where the word that is used to introduce an inferred cause, result, or interpretation. So we could look at this as the inferred interpretation. So what does it mean that these transgressors, those who abandon Yahweh, will come to an end. And what does it mean that these rebels and sinners will become this broken thing? Well, it means that uh, those who are redeemed will be ashamed of you. And who are you? Well, you're the abandoners of Yahweh. They'll be ashamed of the things that you chose. And you, the ones who abandon Yahweh, uh, will be humiliated because of the gardens that you've chosen. So you made this choice, and because of that, you will be humiliated. I'm thinking, and this is like the judgment of God is coming, and their idols can't save them. So as destruction comes upon them, they are humiliated because they trusted in something that is not actually the creator God of the universe. Then we have another key sentence here. Key, you will be like an oak, withered of its leaf. So probably this is an oak that no longer has leaves because it's so withered and dry. So you will be like this dried up oak that has no leaves, and you will be like a garden that does not have water in it. So what's a garden that does not have water? Well, everything's dead and dry. So what happens to dead old trees and dead old gardens? Well, just scroll down a bit. Uh, the strong one will become like tinder, and his works will be made into a spark, and they will burn both of them together, and there will be no one to quench it. So, you rebels who loved your gardens over Yahweh, we are going to become like a dried up garden, and these things that you've done are going to be the fire that lights you aflame and destroys you, and no one's coming to rescue you. You're going to burn up. So how should we understand this key that introduces this whole discussion? I think that it's probably going to be another interpretation, another inferred interpretation. Because remember, those who forsake Yahweh will be brought to an end, there'll be no more. Well, when you burn something up, it is no more. And uh, this first interpretation, it told us how they will be ashamed. Well, they'll be ashamed or humiliated because of their gardens. So those who abandon Yahweh will be wiped out, and that's interpreted to mean that they'll be ashamed of their gardens because those gardens can't rescue them. And then this verse is interpreting everything that was just said and saying that you are going to become like the very things you worshiped, and the things that you worship are going to be the spark that lights you aflame and wipes you out of existence. So in both these cases, I'm suggesting it should be translated as a complementizer that to give the inferred interpretation. And just a quick reminder for everyone as to how this works. So think of like I'll use the same example I used last time. Frank, I have to leave now. It's not that I just like time with you, but it is that I will be fired if I am late for work again. So this is an inferential construction. If I just say, Frank, I have to leave now, Frank might think that I dislike him. So I'm telling him, don't draw the conclusion that I dislike you, or don't interpret what I'm saying as meaning that I dislike you. I want you to interpret what I'm saying is that I'll be late for work. I'm sorry, I'll be fired if I'm late for work again. So in English, we prefer these tandem constructions, uh, but other languages are perfectly fine without the tandem construction. Also, notice you don't have to say it is. You can just say, not that I dislike you, but that I will be fired if I'm late for work again. And if you remove the tandem construction and you just have the statement of the correct inference, then you have that I will be fired if I'm late for work again. Now, in English, we'd want to have it say, it is that I will be fired if I'm late for work again. But many of the world's languages don't require the full expression of it is. And there's strong evidence that Hebrew only just expresses this inferential construction by saying that I will be fired if I'm late for work again. So that they will be ashamed and that you will become like an oak. These are the Hebrew ways of introducing interpretations, or a better put, inferred interpretations of what was said previously. The author doesn't want to leave it up to chance that you'll draw the wrong conclusion, so he's making a statement as to what the correct interpretation should be. And all the world's languages have these constructions. Some of them require the full expression of it is that, others just say is that, others just say it is, others just say is, and some just say that. So Hebrew just says that, and we have these interpretations. So I hope that it's helpful for you so you can see how all of these verses are relating to one another. It can be quite difficult to try to understand what the for is there for or what kind of causality is being discussed. And I look forward to continuing our journey of translating nearly 4,500 verses together.